Hi, I'm Vanessa Furry from Dayton, Ohio. You know, some say that the women's liberation movement started with the right to vote. Others say it was when Rosie the Riveter went to work in the factories during World War II. But I say the women's liberation movement started right here in Dayton, Ohio, when Charles Kettering invented the automatic starter. Up until that time, you had to crank start an engine. It was hard. It could be difficult and even dangerous, so most women, we didn't choose to do it. But with the automatic starter, we could get in our cars, turn on the starter, and drive off. So we drove off. We drove off to shopping, we drove off to work, we drove off to careers and adventures. We drove off to a new life. Right now I'm going to drive off to watch the OhioRAAM show.
Thanks, Vanessa, for that introduction. We have known Vanessa and her husband John for almost 30 years, and they're one of God's good people. We appreciate them so much, and we appreciate Vanessa highlighting one of the great inventions that came out of the city of Dayton, the city of inventions, the self-starter. And this is a show about cycling and ultracycling. It has come to us 3 times a month. But following the race across America and the summer hiatus of the show, when we return in September, we're going to do it twice a month instead. And I'm your host, Lee Kreider, and this is show number 153. We want to thank our sponsors, the first 2 time stations in the race across America in Ohio, time stations 41 in Oxford, Ohio, and time station 42 in Blanchester. These time stations are open 24 hours a day as the race passes by this part of Ohio. We have at both time stations 24-hour food, 24-hour fuel, and most important, 24-hour fans. We're there to serve the racers, the crews, the media staff, the officials, but we're also there to welcome you, the fans. If you live anywhere in the Midwest area, we would like to have you come and join us and watch the racers go by. There will always be somebody there to interpret for you what is happening and give you some information on how the race works, particularly if you're new to the race across America and to ultracycling. It's a great event. Now you may ask, well, when do we come? Well, first of all, let's get the dates out. The race will start in Oceanside, California on the 13th of June, Tuesday the 13th. The solo riders start then. 4 days later, the teams start on June the 17th. That means that we anticipate the first racer to arrive in Ohio on the 19th of June. This always varies a great deal depending on how the race is going, but that's when we will open our time stations. They will stay open around the clock until the last racer has passed on the 24th of June. On the OhioRAAMshow.com website, we will post as soon as they're available the links so you can follow the racers and know when to expect them. One of the nice things about the time stations here in Ohio is the fact that the teams, which start 4 days later, are catching up with the solo riders here, so we have a large number of riders that come through in a relatively compressed length of time. So come on out, enjoy the race. We'd be happy to see you and make your acquaintance. Hey, if you ever thought you'd like to help with the race, become a part of it, we would love to have you become a part of our staff. There's not that much to it, and you will learn a lot and get acquainted with a lot of people. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to the time station's website at ohioraam.bike. On today's show, we're going out to Richmond, Virginia to visit with Andy Welch, who will be riding solo in the Race Across America in 2017. And he has quite an interesting story to tell as he deals with his struggle with depression and a story of hope for all the people out there who may be struggling with this same disease. So let's go see Andy. Okay, and down there in Richmond, Virginia, is that right?
Correct. Yep, we're located just outside in the suburbs of Richmond, so we get the nice country roads to ride on, not the city ones.
Well, Andy, as I understand it, you're riding in the Race Across America 2017. Is that correct?
Yep. We put our name in the hat for the solo division this year.
Well, tell me a little about yourself, how you got into cycling, when you got in, some of the things you've done.
Sure. So I got started in cycling. It's probably been 14, 15 years ago. I was working as a part-time software, engineer, and I was between contracts, and I needed to start getting exercise, and I didn't want to play a team sport because I didn't know what was ahead of me as far as schedule-wise, and I didn't want people to have to rely on me to be there. So I ended up buying an extremely inexpensive mountain bike and fell in love with the sport. And after breaking that one a number of times and lots of visits to the local shop, I started talking to the guys there in the shop and started riding more, and which led to better bikes. And then a good friend of mine, after about riding for about 2 years, talked me into doing an endurance mountain bike race. It was a local race here in Richmond called the 18 Hours on the Farm, and I did fairly well in it. And so the bug was bitten, and been riding ever since.
So at some point you made the adjustment from off-road to on-road, right?
I did. Yep. The same friend who had convinced me that racing mountain bikes was fun. He was heading down to Sebring to do the 1224 down there. The ego in me said, "Look, I can do 24 off-road. I can do 24 on-road. This would be fine." It's a completely different game. Off-road, your mind is constantly engaged by watching the trail change and the terrain, and going around the track there at Sebring at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Your mind's not as engaged. I didn't do as well as I had expected, but we've kept at it. So
was Sebring your first ever endurance race on the road?
On the road, it was. Yep. I think it was back in like 2007, maybe, if my memory is correct. It was around that time.
What are some of the other ultra events you've been involved in?
I've done a number of the OhioRAAM Challenge series. I've done like 6 or 7 of their events, so a mixture of the 400s and one of their 200s. I've done Ohio 400 twice and the 200 there this past fall. Done Texas. I've done Minnesota. All 400s there.
I'm sorry, I missed you at Ohio. I've been there the last few years, and I guess I just never crossed paths, or have I?
Yeah, it's easy to do with me because I tend to keep to ourselves, and I show up and ride my bike, and we go home.
Well, in everything there are talkers and then there are doers. You must be one of the doers.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, because now I've had a slight career change over the last couple of years, and I talk to people all day, every day, and so a lot of times when I'm not at work, I tend to be pretty quiet.
You qualified at work? Well, I guess you've qualified several times.
Yeah, yep. I've been qualified for probably 4 or 5 years. I qualified first in Ohio, and then just requalified at each of the 400s I've done. Again, this past summer at Mid-Atlantic 24 there in North Carolina, I rode enough miles inside of that 24-hour period to have qualified as well.
Andy, you have quite a story to tell, I think, about what brings you to the Race Across America and your purpose in being here.
So the Race Across America is a personal goal of mine for a long time. shortly after that first year in Sebring, and I started following the Race Across America, thinking that one day it might be something that I'd want to take on. The more ultra events I started doing, the more I wanted to do Race Across America. However, there was something keeping me from entering and whatnot, and so I was afraid to tell people why I wanted to enter the race, and I wanted to do it to use the race as a platform to raise awareness for something that was deeply personal to me. But that wasn't something I was ready to tell anybody. My family didn't know. My wife didn't know. I've suffered from depression since my early 20s. I didn't want to. I knew deep down that I wanted to be able to raise awareness for mental health and depression, anxiety, suicide prevention. I couldn't tell anybody. And that all kind of came to a head back in February of 2015 when I had a failed suicide attempt. I first told my boss, and who's also a very close friend of mine, shortly thereafter, because he asked me point blank, "Are you depressed?" And the charade, for me, the charade was over. I was in a safe, and I told him, and next thing you know, we called my wife, we called another very close friend who's in the healthcare profession, and I was able to get the help that I needed. About 6 months after that, I went to the same friend and another gentleman who's now the gentleman who's coaching me, and I told him that I was ready. We're going to do Race Across America, and we were going to help people. And they asked me what changed, and I told them that I was no longer embarrassed. We're going to tell the story, and we're going to try to help some people who are in the same situation I am, who are battling and haven't found the courage to be able to tell somebody or to speak up. From that, there's a local organization here in Richmond who specializes in raising awareness and helping teens who battle from depression and anxiety. And that foundation is the Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation. And we've partnered with them to raise awareness for just that, for depression and anxiety amongst teens.
Could you share us a little bit about treatment?
Yeah, so immediately the day that I told that I spoke up to Michael and Jen, who's my wife, they took me to an emergency center. We'll just say I was less than impressed with the handling of the situation. Through the admission process, you fill out all the paperwork. After that was done, I had told them I was there because I was depressed and I had recently attempted suicide and I needed help. Unfortunately, the young lady, I think she just chose the wrong words at the wrong time. But when she called back, she said, "I have another one for you." And in my mind, I wasn't another one. I was me. And we went upstairs and into there, where I watched a lot of things happen in there, which I looked at and I was like, that's not me. I'm not psychotic. I'm sad, and I want to talk to somebody. And so by the time that the doctor who was on staff at that time got around to seeing me, I had already made up my mind that I was going to put on the best sale performance of my life, and I was getting out of there. I wasn't going to stay there. It wasn't what I needed. Sure enough, within a 15-minute conversation, I convinced him that I was perfectly fine. My friends were overreacting, and all I wanted to do was go home. And home is where they sent me. On the way home, I admitted to my wife exactly what had happened in there. And we started seeking outside therapy, which is ultimately where I found the help that I needed. My therapist was able to teach me tools and some mental things in order to shorten depressive episodes.
Well, it's an interesting story, Andy, and I think there's some lessons to be taken from that from people out there who might be depressed or have friends or family that are depressed. You had the courage to try again. And I have a feeling, and I know for a fact, that some people run into situations not unlike what you did, and then they don't try again. Not every place you go is right for you. Is that not right?
That is absolutely correct. And even when I first met the doctor who I've been seeing, my first impression was, this guy doesn't understand. He's not an athlete. He doesn't understand my mentality. I ended up talking to him a couple of for a couple of sessions, and eventually I was actually glad that he didn't understand. It actually helped the conversation along, and a lot of times, and so at the same time, opposites attract sometimes, and you never know. But he's helped me tremendously. So I'm very thankful for him. The day that I first said something was the hardest day of my life, but at the same time, that night was the best sleep that I've had in a long time, just because there was a huge relief upon me that when as I realized that I don't have to hide it anymore.
Well, that's a remarkable story. And now you're about the business of trying to help others. And tell us a little bit about what you're trying to do with what name of the foundation?
Yeah, so it's the Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation. The namesake of Foundation, Cameron Gallagher, was a young lady here in the Richmond area who battled depression herself. She was 16. She had made it a goal of hers to run a local half marathon down in Virginia Beach. Suddenly, or after she had crossed the finish line, she had collapsed and later passed away from a undiagnosed heart condition. After her passing, her parents had discovered that she, without any help from them, she had been planning to put on a 5K. And I mean, she had drafted up letters to local companies or stores asking for donations and supplies, and she was going to call it the Speak Up 5K. And she knew that there were other teens just like her, and she wanted to be able to help them and encourage them to say something. So her parents, Grace and David Gallagher, knew that that was something that they wanted to do, and on her behalf, and it's grown from more than just a 5K. Now they are inside a number of local schools here, both middle schools and high schools, to where they work with teenagers on teaching them exercises and signs for mental wellness. That's our goal, is to be able to raise some money to for them to be able to continue these programs in order to help the teenagers of our community. Is
there a donation on your website, a donation spot there?
Yep. So there's a couple places to do that. We have a CrowdRise page that is linked on my website, and we also are doing time station sponsors, like so many RAM racers have done in the past. And that can be done through our website as well.
And your website appears at the bottom of the screen right now. What is it?
It's just my name, AndyWelch.net.
Well, that's simple enough, but it's on the screen there. And if you're watching the show on the show website, OhioRAAMshow.com, right below the video, you will see a little box that has some links in it. Among them will be Andy's website, where you can give a donation. And Andy, I really appreciate your willingness to come on here and tell your story. I think it's important for people to hear this. You're doing a wonderful service.
Well, thank you. It's it's something that I feel I truly want to do it, and I know we're helping. We're helping people, and that's what it's all about these days.
Well, strange things happen, Andy, to the OhioRAAM show since it began. We didn't have a mission statement then, but now the charities that you folks are raising is almost becoming more important for us to talk about than the race itself. But you are getting ready to race. Tell me, how's your training going? You got a crew lined up? You're going okay?
We do, yeah. So the crew's all lined up. We've flights are booked, and it's not going to be too long before the RV is leaving Richmond to head west to Oceanside, and training is going well. I feel good. I'm healthy, and we'll be ready to go.
You going to get a little time in the desert before the race starts?
I don't think so. I don't know that I have the time to get down there, but I will probably be the only racer I'm willing to bet in there that's wishing for more humidity.
Well, you have an advantage when you get in the Appalachians then, won't you?
That's true. Yep. That's my hometown or area. We ride there quite a bit.
Well, Andy, thanks a lot again for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. I hope that it helps some people. I hope that it encourages some people to drop a dime or two in your pocket there for your foundation. Probably telling your story is about as important as raising the money, but of course we'd like to see you raise a lot of money.
Sure, and as would I. They're doing great things, and anything I can do to help I'm definitely willing to. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story on your show.
Well, when you get to Ohio, time stations 41 and 42 at Oxford and Blanchester, there'll be somebody there. Probably won't be me, but there'll be somebody there to give you a really warm welcome and help you on your way and get you prepared for those Appalachians.
Well, we're looking forward to it. I can't wait.
Thanks a lot, Andy.
All right. Thank you, Lee.
Well, thank you, Andy. We appreciate the time you take to be on the show and your willingness to share with us your story. I think that's going to be helpful to people who see it, maybe give them the courage to step forward and do what needs to be done to deal with their problems, be it depression or any other problem for that matter. And be sure to visit again the website, OhioRAAMshow.com, where you'll see links to Andy's website, Facebook page, and his sponsors. Always check those links because there's a lot of information there that we don't get to during the show. And we want to thank all of our viewers as well. We appreciate you a great deal. Your support means quite a lot to us, and particularly so as we're coming up to our very next show, which will be, guess what? Our 5th anniversary of the OhioRAAM show. We've been doing this now for 5 years. Hard to believe it. My goodness. 5 years? Well, it's what it's been. And our next show, we're going to have Vic Armijo, who is the head of the RAM Media for the 2017. He'll be telling us a little bit about what they're doing. And then we'll spend a little time cogitating on what we expect to be seeing in the race across America in 2017. There are some interesting things happening in this race, and you won't want to miss them, and you won't want to miss Vic's views on this, who is the keen observer of this race. Also, we're going to have some special music on our 5th anniversary. I sort of recruited the church choir where we attend, Fairview United Methodist Church in Dayton, Ohio, to help me with the show, and they had quite fun doing it, and we're glad to have them along with our church organist, Io, from Nigeria. You'll enjoy some of the music that we have, I'm sure. So that show's going to be on June the 7th, just shortly before the race itself starts. With that, we'll see you in about 10 days. Goodbye.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.